Hello, everyone there. Hello.
Hello, Sita. Good evening.
Yes. Good evening. How are you?
I'm fine.
Yes, I think we are going to start in a few minutes come, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's starting from
4,
16, I believe. That's when
4 East
the
African
meeting has
time.
been. Yeah, EST.
Okay. Okay, let's wait. I was just testing if you can hear me properly.
Yeah, absolutely. Loud and clear.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. A big warm welcome. I see everyone is joining early. That's great. Great, a big warm welcome, everyone. We still have a few minutes, but if you're able to, go ahead and log in, scan the barcode, or go to mentimeter.com and type in that code. We have a few questions to kind of get us warmed up for the webinar. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Um, Hello, my name is Anthony Kimaro.
Hello?
I hope you hear
Yes,
me.
we can hear you very properly, Doctor.
Okay, let me put on my video here for the sake. So welcome to this webinar, and we appreciate for registering and then taking your time to join. And we are really excited that uh, you have taken part to be in this webinar. The webinar is about the project that's funded by NORAD about the advancing soil health agenda in Kenya and Tanzania through the knowledge exchange. We'll be hearing up-to-dates on what has been happening, workshops and activities in both Tanzania and Kenya through the series of our well-prepared, excited, and motivated speakers. At this point, we have a mentor that was on the screen at the beginning. You can scan and discover the mystery and respond to the questions. Christine, you'll be guiding us on that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Anthony. Yeah, please just join go on Mentimeter and enter this code. You can also scan the QR that's appearing on your screen to go to the questions, and I'll be sharing my screen in a few to just have a look at what some of the things that we're saying in the survey.
Great, thanks, Christine. So go ahead, Anthony, and go through the objectives of the webinar so we can give people time to go through the Menti poll. Go ahead, Anthony.
Thanks, Lee. So as we are working on the MECO, today's agenda is all about presenting the findings of the pilot initiative. And this will be focusing on the results that came from the survey and the in-kind workshops that I mentioned we had in there and the use cases. All this will give us an idea of what has come out of this pilot initiative. Then we will have a dialogue, and this will be providing a platform for us as a stakeholders to reflect on the findings and then discuss together opportunities that can be available to improve and innovate and integrate soil health into our policies and practices. And finally, we will work on this slide. We will work on the reflecting and map the way forward on the scaling soil health information and services across the continent, expanding on what we are discussing here. And this will be really fostering collaboration and ensuring that we align to the regional and continental goals and frameworks that are available. I guess we will also, as we are finishing, we'll have about 2 minutes remaining, like 3 minutes to go through the poll. Christine, are you going to project right away or it will come later?
Yes. Okay, so I'll share the screen now.
Yes.
All right, let me know if you can see my screen.
We just see your desktop.
Yep.
You can see just my desktop.
Yep, Zoom Workplace.
Oh, okay. Let me just stop sharing and then share again.
Great. So one of the first questions in the Menti poll was, how are people feeling today? So you can go ahead and give a reaction if you're feeling good, if you're feeling, what are the other emojis there? So we can also do that. So we want to, always check in and see how people are feeling today. And some of the other questions are about expectations you may have for this webinar. So remember to hold all of us accountable. You've taken time out of your busy day to join us, and we want to make sure that we're meeting those expectations. So please feel free to fill out the Menti poll, and we can just go ahead and share the results later in the program. So thank you so much. And go ahead. This is our panel for today. As you can see, we have a number of esteemed speakers joining us from across the globe, actually. And Anthony, I was just informed that our opening remarks from Manyewa Mutamba, the head of agriculture out in APAD, just texted me that he had such a great engagement at CADAP in Kampala yet last week that he is now sick, so he is not able to join us. However, he asked me to just give a few remarks on his behalf. I will not, of course, do justice, as I'm Lee Winowicki, soil scientist here at C4ECRAF and co-lead of the Coalition of Action for Soil Health. But Manyewu and I, and many of us have been working together, and he really wanted to emphasize the role of soil health data to achieve the Africa Fertilizer and Soil Health Action Plan and the Nairobi Declaration. And for those of you who are up to date, there's now a Kampala Declaration. So really thinking about how soil health and soil health data can really be used to leverage and achieve these declarations. And we'll ask Hank later to expand. So back to you, Anthony, to invite our next speaker. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Lee, for that few opening remarks on behalf of you. And our next speaker is Simon Tala, and this is the Director of Global Health and Ecosystem Solutions from Ghana. He was one of the people who ran the sessions and well informed. So without taking much of your time, welcome, Simon, and the floor is yours. You'll have 7 minutes.
Thank you so much. Good day to everyone. Let me try to pull some slides up for you. And thank you very much for organizing this. Let me know when you can see the documents, please.
You can just go ahead and talk us through while we wait.
Sure. Well, I'm not multitasking. I'm not a woman, as you know, so it's hard for me to actually do that while I like you do. But the idea with the presentation that I'll be sharing in a moment is to really, let me just try to share the screen. Sorry, probably it'll be easier. Is to walk you through the work we did I think we're set with Lee and under the umbrella of NORAD funded initiative, but to really try to understand how soil data and information is used across the ecosystem, particularly of Kenya and Tanzania, how we could actually use it better and make it more widely available and accessible as part of the initiative to support soil health at the national as well as regional and continental level. Can you see the screen now?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay, awesome. So key objectives of the pilot that has been running for the past few months and we're wrapping up now are 4. First of all, we have been trying to map existing initiatives for the soil data information across East African region, but let's say more broadly beyond. And this entailed doing a lot of research and engagement with third parties done by, again, ECRAF, C4ECRAF, and our team at BARDA that I represent here. The second part is the mapping of the soil data ecosystem and the key stakeholders across those 2 countries to really understand where the data is, what is shared, and how. As part of that, one thing that was key and instrumental was the organization of some in-person workshops, I think in Kenya and Tanzania, that I'll be telling you more about in a minute. We tried to, as some of you may know, we at BARDA developed Soil High, which is a free and open data platform that allow people to find, compare, and exchange soil data. And we wanted to understand how this is useful for the key stakeholders and how we could actually make it better to make finally and eventually available to third parties in the region, and 4, inform the development of a new, much broader, larger initiative. As I was telling you before, some of the work entailed doing research, and there were many people that were engaged by the ECRAF and BARDA team to understand how people use data. And as you can see on your left, there's quite a lot of work in collecting data, but also, and most largely, on relying on third-party data to develop soil information systems and products. And on the other hand, you can see that local communities and policymakers are widely engaged in the data collection process, so nothing can really happen without them.
Moni, I'll just ask everyone to mute. So if anyone doesn't have their microphone mute, I see Athanas,
Sure.
Frederick, Philani. If you can go ahead and mute yourself, I think that would be great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Lee. As I was telling you before, we got some very interesting engagement in person in both Tanzania and Kenya, where ICRAF organized two fantastic workshops with the participation of many people across different institutions. In Tanzania, we had some 30 participants representing the Ministry of Agriculture, research and academic institutes such as the Open University and TARI, NGOs, youth representatives from White Earth and the pastoral initiatives, farmers there, private sector organizations was there, and same in Kenya, some 45 participants attending, again, representing the wide range of organizations developing, producing data and using data for soil management and across the whole spectrum of soil data and information use. Again, NGOs, research organizations. I want to do justice to cite and quote one or a few of them, as there was really a fantastic participation, and we were really grateful to all of those people who attended and took some time to be there. Now, to get to the results, in short, one issue clearly is related to data, and we got some good feedback and understanding of which are the main challenges and opportunities there, I think. First of all, the fact that there is diverse data needs, meaning that there are different use cases, there are different objectives related to soil management across the countries. And this requires a wide range of, probably a wider range than expected, of soil health indicators. It's not just about some properties, but it's also about socioeconomical data, environmental data, and so forth. The second thing is the reliance on third-party data. So nobody can solve this and crack this alone. Around 40% of stakeholders, as we saw before, depend on third-party data. So that's really critical. And it's critical that we make transparent and accessible those data sources among ourselves and the organizations and stakeholders using this data. The third point was the barrier related to free data collection and use, because this clearly needs, quite a lot of financial resources. But it's not just collecting the data; it's also resources to be able to monitor the use of soil and its management, and the infrastructure that are related to collecting, processing, and use data, which are sometimes missing along with capacity again. Fourth but not least, data sharing capabilities. We saw that many organizations still rely on ways of sharing data that are inefficient, that are to some extent restricted or not entirely transparent, because there's no data policy to access those data. And sometimes it still happens over emails and sharing hard drives, which clearly make the application and the effort needed to get the data very high, while we know that there is so much to do in actually putting that data to use and to good use instead. But it's not just about data. It's also about including and be inclusive when it comes to the organizations. That's the feedback we got. So there is a lot of potential in engaging youth and local organizations to understand, collect data, understand, process data, and actually use it and actually use data for the good. Capacity building clearly is an element that was mentioned across the wide spectrum of data collection to use, implementation of soil management projects. There are gaps in soil health data because, as I told you before, there are key use cases, which is not just fertilizer application, that should require tailored solutions. We were able to get some specific feedback on soil health related to the usability, and some other tools related to how do we make soil data actionable and usable, also to those who have no technical necessarily, that are not soil scientists, and therefore being able to transform and visualize this data in a way that can actually trigger action. And then finally, some very good feedback we got from startups and other organizations are the concerns, which are super legitimate concerns on confidentiality, ownership. How do we build services and systems that we can trust, where we know that we can trust data, we can put data in, knowing that we won't lose agency over this data. And also some local startups express the fact that, putting data in a system which is a foreign platform with proprietary technology, it's not necessarily the best way to go, because they felt hesitant in sharing data that way, and they would like legitimately to participate in the value creation. We took all of this feedback to propose some next steps for 2025-2017, which include, for example, the open sourcing, the full open sourcing of the Soil Life platform, which means that Soil Life can become a tool that everybody can just pick, every organization can pick, let's say, clone and reuse as part of a federated network, whereby everybody can manage their own soil data in a way it fits their own organizations, while making sure that there is transparency in access to those data by whoever the organization grant access to. The second, the focus on use cases. So we would like to expand this development of local use cases to better understand how to support national and local ecosystems across a different spectrum, the diverse spectrum of objectives, prioritizing solutions that can really help us get into the last mile. Building local capabilities from the soil data collection to processing and management, and engaging organizations, local institutions, youth organizations that can support spreading this across. And last but not least, not forgetting what our friend Manuel would probably told us now, which is aligning with the EU Soil Health and Fertilizer Action Plan, cross-pollinating across countries to make sure that all countries across the region can really make a step change when it comes to managing and sharing, exchanging soil data for national soil health and fertilizer action plans. With that, I think I can hand it over to you. Anthony, thank you so much. And let me take this opportunity to thank you again for the fantastic organizations of the workshops in both Kenya and Tanzania.
Great. Thank you, Simon, for this wonderful briefing on the workshops. Yes, we 2 minutes behind, but we'll catch up. As we send a message, please write your questions for this talk on the chat. And right now, I want to welcome Lee, who is the head of our soil health team, to take over the next session. Welcome, Lee, please.
Great. This is called co-moderation. I absolutely love it. And thank you, Simone, for really laying out all the engagement, the different ways we've engaged to collect these data, and how we're really using this webinar also to have some, feedback. And please, we will have time for Q&A. So now I really want to bring in a panel to talk about the role of soil health data for policy and practice. So we have 3 amazing panelists, Dr. Henk van Duin from the IFDC, International Fertilizer Development Center. He's the CEO. We also have Engineer Juma Mekde, a Director of Land Use Planning and Management from the Ministry of Agriculture, Tanzania. And even though, again, like Manyewu, we had some people falling ill over the holidays, Hildalitha Msita from TARI, who's joined us. So we're really grateful. She's the Manager for Natural Resource Management and Agricultural Engineering Research. So I will stop sharing. We can start spotlighting. I really want to thank everyone for being here, and especially people who are attended the workshops and are now listening to this feedback. This is fantastic. So my first question will go to Henk. So I'm sure he'll turn his video on so we can see him. And Henk, I already alluded that since Manyewu was not really able to talk about the Africa Fertilizer and Soil Health Action Plan, nor the Kampala Declaration, I know you just came back from Kampala. So if you could please talk about the role of soil health data, soil information systems and services to really achieve what we've outlined in the action plan and this new declaration. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Lee, and thanks, everybody. And first of all, Happy New Year to all of them I didn't do yet. But answering the question of Lee about CADA and the Kampala Declaration last week, I think it's very important that we have an integrated approach of the Fertilizer and Soil Health Summit of May and the Nairobi Declaration and the Action Plan approved last year, and the CAADP 3 Kampala Declaration. I think what is important to learn from the last 20 years is that the African Union agreed to look into food systems instead of only agriculture productivity. And soil health and fertilizer and soil health are mentioned now also in the CAADP Declaration as the main driver for increased productivity. The 10% is still relevant, which was already agreed in Malabo 2014, but as we all know, all the 55 member states have to didn't comply with the 10% till today. The last BR in 2023 really showed that all 55 countries were behind. We have some very good examples, Rwanda, and of course we all know the strength of Ethiopia, although their 10% investment is not yet there as it was foreseen in the Malabo Declaration. That means that we have to work together if we talk about soil health and soil health data. After May in Nairobi, everybody and all the countries wanted to have soil maps. Everybody wanted to have clarity on their fertilizer imports and fertilizer dashboards. Everybody wanted to have a clear definition of soil health, but also the indicators to be measured in country to understand what is the real challenges, what are the real challenges countries face before they convert this data, this available data, into actions to improve agriculture productivity, but much more important, to develop restoration plans of degraded soils. And we all know most of the soils are degraded, or we lose topsoil, which is a major challenge for most of the countries to increase their productivity. So if you take data into account, as well the CAADP action plan, that means the current Kampala Declaration, which is 2026 till 2035, or the Nairobi Declaration on Fertilizer and Soil Health, 2034, they all depend on available data. And my plea today would be that the data we have available on the continent, at country level, at regional level, at continental level, should be shared and be much more accessible. And first of all, be standardized. Because if I look at soil maps, I think we spent $450 million on developing soil maps, which is completely insane and completely useless. But there are too many initiatives on developing soil maps in countries or at regional level. So public available data is key to assure that the Fertilizer and Soil Health Summit action plan in the coming 10 years can be implemented. And second, that the CAADP ambitions can be delivered by providing the right input of data for policy developers and for program developers in the different countries to develop projects which are effective based and fact-based, based on data which is publicly available. Back to you, Lee.
Great. Hank, I see that you've actually snuck in some questions as well for Simone and Esther from Varda about, not duplicating platforms, being synergistic, and really making sure data is more accessible. So that is fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm now, since you bring up different initiatives, I'm going to ask our next panelist, Hilde, to come in from the Tanzania Agricultural Research Institute. And I'd like you to just, maybe follow up on what Hank was talking about in terms of, soil initiatives ongoing in Tanzania. So especially what is the role of TARI, of the Agricultural Research Institute, to kind of address these issues that we were talking about, the need for soil data, but the need for anything to be accessible. So Hilde, I know you're there. Do you want to turn your video on? Hildelitha.
Yes. Here am I. Happy New Year to everybody.
Shikamo, asante sana.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me. I wanted to say that to answer your question that you are aware that there are several soil initiatives going on in Tanzania, especially on developing soil information systems, including digital soil mapping, but also knowing the suitability of the soils for agriculture in our country. But I want to tell you what is the role of TARI in that. TARI has expertise in different soil specialties, including geology, including soil fertility, is plant nutrition, as well as all the chemical, physical, and the biological for soil information system. We are having the different expertise working on those different specialties. So what is the use of the soil information system to our institute, but as well as in the country? First of all, that when we produce the soil information system from the field as TARI, we are using them in different ways. First, we are putting them as a reference for different activities. But what are these different activities? First, for research purposes. For example, if we are having soil information, we can use them to derive other information which can help in agriculture. For example, making soil suitability map, doing fertilizer recommendation rates for different fertilizer products, but also for giving the farmers what they can use, what they can produce in which area where we have been researched. But again, this information, we derive them to the level of the consumers, that to the level the policymaker can use, to the level the farmer can use, to the level other expertise can use. So those are the way we are using the soil information system. But again, in our function, we have the advisory purpose. That advisory function. We advise the farmer, we advise the private company, policymakers. So this information, when we convert them in consumption form or in consumed form, they can be used by the farmer. For example, farmers can use them to know when to apply fertilizer, which fertilizer they can apply in the field. But again, their extension staff, which can use those information to advise the farmer too. But again, policymakers, they can devise where they can invest what. For example, if it is agriculture, which crop can be promoted to be produced in that area. But again, private companies, especially fertilizer companies. Fertilizer companies, they're producing different products of fertilizer. So those different products of fertilizer, they needed to be researched or to be analyzed where they fit to be used. Or sometimes the company, they ask us to give them the fertilizer recommendation rates so that they can produce the blends which can be used in the market, and they can be readily used because they are needed in the market. That is all I can share with you. So regarding the soil initiatives, maybe my fellow, because it's at policy level, Mr. Engineer Mwinjuma can say something, but just to let you know that we are having national program where we are doing the soil survey the whole country, and the TARI is participating, but the ministry is leading. But also we have different initiatives, soil for Africa. We are doing also we are conducting different demonstration plots in the country to know which type of fertilizer at which fertilizer recommendation rates can be applied to give us the profit to that. So thank you very much.
Asante sana, and I really appreciate that. We have 2 minutes. I'm gonna pin Hank as well. I don't know. Please stay with us. Oh, I don't know if I can pin 2 people. So I would like Anthony to also turn on his camera, and Simone, because there's a couple questions in the chat and you're only going to have 30 seconds to answer it. Simone, the first question that Hank actually proposed to you also was about, well, you heard it, duplication. How can Soil Hive ensure synergies? You only have 30 seconds. Go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a fantastic question. Let me just say that right now, if you're looking for some soil data in a specific region, you have nowhere to go to actually see whether you have soil data there available or not. What we are trying, you do have multiple websites, but you don't really have a way to search through those websites. So that's what we were trying to make, a neutral gateway to look into all these different websites, to make it super easy and transparent to look whether you have some data in a region and whether you can access to those data or not. And if you do, just take it right away. We do not do big maps. We are not in the map making business. I agree with your comment there, meaning that first of all, there are many maps and you need good data to do that. So what we just try to do is to make data accessible for anybody else to use those, which is missing.
And there's a question here that says, do we plan to integrate legacy data and continuously generated data from research and commercial? What's the answer? Yes, no?
Absolutely, yes. Yes, both are key, important. And we're looking to integrate already with some private labs to make sure that data can flow in directly into the system.
Great. Thank you, Simone. Hank, the next question goes to you. In the chat, there was a question about soil organic matter and does it help to improve fertilizer use efficiency? Do you want to speak to that? You also only have 30 seconds.
30 seconds, counting now. Yes, soil organic matter is relevant, but it's more complex than only adding more soil organic matter. So most of our soils in Africa are acidic, so liming is a big topic if you really want to ensure that the external fertilizer we add to the soil is effective. So nutrient use efficiency has to be seen from a much broader soil health perspective than only organic matter. Back to you.
Wow, that was 30 seconds. Thank you. Hildalitha, the last one goes to you. Athanas pointed out about extension and how to, the need to bring soil data into extension. And then there was another question about interdisciplinary projects. So what is your feeling about bringing soil health data with economists, conservationists, youth, soil scientists? So you also only have 30 seconds. Good luck tackling that, Hildalitha. Go ahead and unmute.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. First of all, about the involving the extension services using the soil information system. For example, in Tanzania, currently, we are having a program where the TARI is developing the technology. Among the technology, the soil information system that can be used easily by the extension staff. And in that way, we train extension staff and we give the information which can be readily used by them to advise the farmers. So in that way, the extension staff are involved. Not only involved by using the information, also when we are going to field to collect some information, the extension staff are used because they are the ones which can link for us researchers and the farmers in how to use the soil information system. It's just a link between the researcher and the farmers. So that is that. But again, can you repeat the another question, please?
I think we'll answer it in the chat. I think your answer was absolutely perfect. Thank you so much. Asante sana, Hildalitha. Can everyone just give a virtual round of applause for our panel and our speakers? And thank you so much. Let's give a react. That was amazing and such diverse perspectives. So I really appreciate this. Keep your questions coming. And I'm seeing a lot coming in also on the Menti poll. So it is with my sincere pleasure now to introduce Christine Magaju. She's a research associate in the soil and land health theme at C4ECRAF. So Christine, I will hand it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Lee. And thank you to all the previous speakers for such a wonderful and enlightening session. So it's great to hear about, the linkages between, how we need to use soil health data for policy, but also what needs to be in place. So I especially loved Hank's, comment on standardization, making sure like all these things are talking to each other. So for the next 12 minutes, we'll be looking at the actual use cases. So we've had a bit on the policy, but, looking at the actual use cases, and we have a panel of practitioners that use data on the ground. Before we start, just to give a highlight for the ones that were at the workshops, this was one of the exercises that we did where we sort of prioritized around 5 key data uses, soil health data uses, in order of priority, what is most important for us, at least for the participants. And in Kenya, land restoration and fertilizer recommendations were ranked in terms of priority, whereas in Tanzania, it was fertilizer recommendations and policy recommendations. So sort of a different approach in terms of the priority. But we also asked participants to identify additional use cases for soil data. And it was interesting to see education and through academia and youth groups come up in Kenya. And in Tanzania, there was a strong case for finance, so using soil health data for finance, insurance, and that. Next, Lee. Great. So as I mentioned, we're going to have a very insightful panel discussions with 3 panelists. We'll start, from, Jonathan Gishuru, who's the Kenya country representative for youth, young professionals for agricultural development, and also a member of the Youth for Soil. We'll hear from Joshua Laser, the Secretary General, for the Africa Pastoralist Youth Initiative, as well as Bani Senepo, an agricultural ecologist with the Nature Conservancy. So I think we can stop sharing the screen. And we'll start with, I think we'll go in the order that they appear. So we'll start with Joshua. Jonathan. Jonathan came first. If you can turn on your camera, Jonathan, if that's okay with you. Can you describe the role of YPAD and youth in particular when it comes to expanding the use of soil data, but also soil health information for policy and practice? So we've had a bit in the previous session. Could you expand a little bit more and taking it from the youth perspective in terms of this? Jonathan?
Well, yeah, thank you, Christine. Please allow me to have my camera off because I'm in a rural village in Bungoma County, and my internet connectivity is not that great. Yeah.
Okay, go for it. You have 4 minutes.
Okay. It's great to see that we are picking up the conversation since we last met at C4ECRAF. Well, I think I want to start off by saying that sustainable practices within agri-food systems, including sequestering carbon in agricultural soils, actively plays a crucial role in restoration of degraded land and positively contributes to LDN and food security. It's also important to highlight that agriculture and food systems is uniquely placed to deliver on both mitigation and adaptation goals in tandem. Therefore, countries like Kenya could benefit in including aspects such as soil organic carbon in their NDCs. A recent publication by C4ECRAF analyzed 184 countries' NDCs and revealed that only 28 of these countries referred to soil organic carbon, peatlands or wetlands in their NDCs, thus missing out on an immense opportunity for climate change mitigation and adaptation. So having said that, by now we all know that young people are key actors across the agri-food systems, from production all the way up to delivering products to the market. And we are in an era of digital transformation, and young people are digital natives and innovative. And the benefit of having increased soil health data in Kenya, especially for young people, is, for instance, bridging an existing gap where young people can play a key role in translating science and policy work into knowledge packages that can.
Is that you, Joshua? There's a bit of feedback. Jonathan, sorry. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, better.
Okay. Sorry. So I was mentioning the benefits of having increased soil health data in Kenya, especially for young people, is, for instance, bridging an existing gap that has been highlighted in various platforms. And young people can play a key role in translating science and policy work into knowledge packages that can be absorbed by the most impacted, such as smallholder farmers. For instance, at the moment, as I mentioned earlier, I'm part of about 30 young people who are involved in the Kenya Carbon Farmers Survey by CIMIT in partnership with EDI Global in 4 counties in Kenya: Bungoma, Kakamega, Kisumu, and Trans Nzoia, with the main aim of assessing women's participation in carbon farming, gendered impacts, and best practices for global participation. And some of the common barriers that
Jonathan, sorry.
Some of the common barriers that young people face in accessing soil health data include insufficient technical and management capacities, limited agricultural extension, inadequate financial resources, limited dissemination of information, and institutional disconnection at various levels on issues related to land, soil, and water management. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And I love that, what you said about the role of youth in bridging the gap and translating science to policy and practice. And we'll go to the next speaker, Joshua. Joshua Liza, you're part of the Africa Pastoralist Youth Initiative. So we've had from Jonathan around, sustainable farming. What do you think is the role? How can soil health data support rangeland restoration? And from your experience as well.
Thank you,
4
Christina.
minutes.
Thank you, Christina. I think before I go to the point, I think we have heard about the issues that we have been speaking. We have had some of the data that have been mentioned, that sometimes when going down to the ground, I think it is important also to address this, that sometimes when we talk about the issue of data and soil health, we talk much more scientific side. And I'm a little bit concerned if to the last end use of the data, if they have this ability to disseminate this, how are we disseminating this information, for example, to the pastoralist communities? And well, just to answer your question, I think one, we know the challenges that these people, particularly the people from the rangeland, have faced, the issues of land degradation, the overgrazing that comes from them, but also the impact of this soil fertility. And I tell you, Christine, it's not just the issue of cattle and grazing. Now these people are also we call them agro-pastoralists. They have started farming. So in one way or another, the issue of soil health is important. Now, how can we as pastoralists support the issues of data health and soil data health, for example? I think there is an opportunity for the pastoral community to, first of all, to be part of this process of ensuring that the data that we collect are relevant. This is through the integration of the scientific way with the indigenous local knowledge. And this is very important. These communities have know much more that even the science can learn from them. It is not always the science part of it, but also the indigenous knowledge and expertise is also important. But I think through the implementation of the programs, for example, the issues of proper rangeland management, holistic management of these resources is also important. Implementation of the grazing practices and conservation measures as well is very important. But also back to the indigenous knowledge, that what I think is you as scientists need to much more to focus on. I think there are the issues that we call technology. Tari, we have had Tari develop technology that will help in assessing, but also collection, processing of this data. We have heard that the final use of the technology, farmers are only involved on interpretation of the data. My concern is we are supposed to, either from the perspective of the farmers, from the designing of this program, of these technologies, we need to involve the communities. We need to involve the people who will be the end user. And also, while incorporating the same, we also have the issues of finance that we really need to have finance coming down, because most of the initiative that has been done, as we have that third-party data at the source of the data. So I think there is also an important for the to have the to enable the community this initiative that are going under the ground to be able to process the data, to collect the data, and process the same data for the health, soil health.
Okay. Thank you so much. And I have several takeaways. So it's not just about the data, it's also making sure, I know, linking back to what Hank said, that this is publicly available and accessible, but also involving communities throughout the process and also indigenous knowledge. So wonderful to hear about that. And finally, Bernice, could you highlight some of the opportunities for including soil health data in conservation efforts? So you work for TNC, perhaps highlighting some of the work around soil carbon and also foodscapes. Not to lead the discussion in any way.
Thanks so much, Christine, and hello to everybody, and appreciating all the other presenters that have come before me. So as Christine has just mentioned, I work for the Nature Conservancy, and our primary mandate is conservation. However, we do appreciate the role that soil health plays, and it's sort of the core and the baseline for every other work that we implement, cutting across rangelands and of course food systems. So from the food systems lens and also the rangelands, we do appreciate that the role of healthy or improved soil quality for our smallholder farmers, but also for our pastoral farmers. So two key initiatives that we have within the Nature Conservancy, and usually are housed under what we call the East Africa Rangeland Hub, where we are trying to collate evidence, resources, and of course, ensuring that we have appropriate or rather scalable tools, monitoring tools to say this is a healthy rangeland and this is not a healthy rangeland, or we can say this is a healthy soil and this is not a healthy soil. So with that kind of outlook, then we have two major programs, and this is under the East Africa Rangeland Hub. One is in the carbon projects in the northern Kenya, but also we have the northern Tanzania Rangeland Initiative, which cuts across the northern part, Simanjiro Munduli within Tanzania. And here what we are looking at specifically is to leverage on data collected, of course, through collaborative efforts with different partners, particularly with ICRAF, among other partners. And here we are looking at how then do we fill the data gaps? How do we have robust evidence collected? Here we are talking about how do we have harmonized methodologies, and this has been, of course, repeated by different presenters, where we say they've highlighted that there's so much data out there, but how it is collected from different by different parties or for different reasons that's where the critical gap is actually. That is one. Then the second thing is, how then do we use this data to support conservation efforts? And then how do we again prioritize some of our conservation efforts? There has been, for example, TNC has had huge investment and time investment in the northern rangelands. This I'm talking about 2 decades, but there hasn't been really concrete data available where we can say this is what is working and this is what is not working. And even if there is, it isn't something that has been shared across board, cutting across policymakers, land managers, financiers. That's something that hasn't been shared. So this offers also, the data will also offer us that opportunity to be able to, for knowledge sharing really. Then another thing is looking at monitoring or sort of scaling monitoring models and predictive models. How then do we leverage on these resources to be able to accurately, or at least close to accurately, predict the changes within our ecosystems and underlined through the work that we are doing. And finally, and this has been strongly across, for example, strongly expressed across our own niches, soil health, rangelands, food systems, is how then do we shift from donor funding to sustainable finance mechanisms, and how do we leverage soil health for that? So that's how carbon projects are coming, among other things. So then how do we leverage this data to ensure that communities have improved livelihoods? How do we bring them in through a participatory approach to ensure that they have let me use the word appropriate benefit sharing across board. So these are some of the things that we would highlight and of course leverage as we use soil health data. Thank you.
Great. So leveraging data for supporting conservation, but also prioritizing. I think I'll now open up. I think a lot of the questions on the chat have been answered. So I'll hand back to Lee to take us through the last sessions. Thank you, everybody, and thank you. Let's give a round of applause for our panelists.
Thanks, Christine. That was amazing. Thank you so much. I am not even sure how to deal with all the questions coming in. I am encouraging people to respond in the chat because there are just so many amazing questions. And maybe I just give Esther, if you want to, I see Simone is addressing quite a bit about Soil Hive, but if you want to just choose one, Esther, and bring your voice into the conversation, I'll give you a couple minutes before we give closing remarks to Ingveld. Oh, go ahead, Esther.
Hi. Yes, I was actually trying to answering the question from Mary Kingalu that was asking what are the main challenges in implementing and scaling soil information system in Africa. I think there are several challenges that have also been already brought to the table. For example, the fragmentation of data across different institutions in different format, which is making it really difficult to harmonize, access, and use the data efficiently. Of course, there is a question about capacity. So it was clear even during the workshop that dumping data to people is not always the solution, because a lot of stakeholders are lacking of skills to interpret properly the data, analyzing and make informed decision. So use the data. There is also a problem related to inconsistent standards, which are both technical, but also how do I sample in a standardized way when I go to the field, and what type of analysis I do in order to understand the change in soil quality and health during over time. And then I think another key point would be stakeholder engagement. There are a lot of projects going on, and sometimes the people are not fully aware of what specific projects are trying to address and how this project can ultimately affect them.
Great.
Because
Esther,
of this, yeah.
As you close, can you just introduce yourself? Because I don't think everyone knows.
Sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to bring to attention one thing that Thor from ICRAF said during the workshop that I thought it was very bright. That through this project, together with ICRAF, we are really trying to move from a soil information system to a soil information service, which means that we are trying to focus as much as possible to really try to deliver actionable insights and deliver user-focused tools to allow people to make more informed decisions and to use the data. I'm Esther Miglio, science lead here at Varda, working with Simone. Thank you so much. And sorry, I didn't introduce me as a first thing.
Thank you so much. That's fine. Thank you, Esther. I also noticed that Marie Agnes is online, and I don't want to put you on the spot, and we really want to get to the closing, but we did invite you from the World Bank to the panel. And I don't know, Marie Agnes, if you want to say anything about what the World Bank is doing. Obviously unplanned intervention, but I just wanted to acknowledge that there's a number of new donors in this space, and we're really excited to be, linking and collaborating with so much. So maybe Marie Agnes, you just put it in the chat. So I am super pleased now
I'm sorry.
Oh,
do you want me to say something?
Oh, yeah, sure. Go ahead. You have like 1 minute. Introduce yourself, please.
No, I'm Ron from the World Bank. Just saying we very much back everything that's been said today. I'm sorry, my camera seems to be I think it's the wrong one. We're very much backing everything that's been said here, very much looking for cooperation. We very much supported eCraft and Soil Hive in this initiative. Ourselves, we're trying to put together, how we can use the data that's been collected on this platform and other data we've put together for use cases. So actually, I'm using all the information I'm having here to see how we can move forward with this. But hopefully we can unfold all this very soon. That's all. Don't want to take more time. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And I hope I'm not going to get a WhatsApp message for putting you on the spot unplanned. We really appreciate you, and we appreciate all the amazing efforts of the World Bank. So now I'm really excited to introduce Ingvild Langhus. She will be providing closing remarks. She's the Senior Advisor for Food Security at NORAD. I love this photo of her because I think it's always cold in Norway, even in summer, but hopefully not so much today. So I will just say that I thank you so much for providing these remarks, and I will spotlight you. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. When you said that, Lee, I just kind of wanted to show you the outside, but I blurred my background. But I'm sitting here in the snow, and it's around -1 degree. So I guess it's a bit colder than many of you are experiencing. But yes, it's not always cold, but I see that you've taken my LinkedIn photo where I'm hiking in the mountains. So actually today I'm also up on a departmental seminar. But thank you everyone for your introductions and your sharing of information. And sort of some of my key takeaways is always that this is all about our future food security for all of us. This is basically the health of the soil. Really is the fundamental piece that we will have as the sort of main ingredient for the source of food that we will all be dependent on in the future. So this is not unimportant. This is really, really crucial for all of us, both in terms of food security, but also in terms of environmental concerns. And also, as many of you have talked about, livelihoods, productivity, income. So not only food security, but also economy. And I hear many of you talking about the need for cooperation, the need for sharing of data, the need for having standardized systems, for having going from systems to services. I really appreciate that in the work of Soil Hive. This is also some of the main reasons why we have engaged and supporting the Soil Hive initiative. Really that data should be open, interoperable, meaning that it can be shared across stakeholders. If we continue to collect data in each and every project and not sharing that data, actually it will be waste of time, waste of resources. And we don't have abundant supply of resources and time, money and human resources. So, and also equipment that is being used. So we really, really need to step up on the sharing of information. And I think both your workshops that you had in October, other meetings that we have engaged in, and also sessions such as this one, an hour together, where information can be shared, we can listen. I really, really welcome more of those initiatives. And if they're happening, please send me an invite. I would be really, really pleased to listen into other initiatives that are taking place that maybe we're not even aware of. So that is really, really good. And also appreciate the broad engagements that you're having, where there are representatives from both the producers of data and the users of data, right? Both the researchers, the private sector, and the private sector meaning both farmers, but also companies that are supplying the inputs, whether they are fertilizers or whether they are seeds or other inputs. And even private sector that is producing and using data. That is also really, really important. And also really happy to see the engagements from Kenya and Tanzania and to hear the lessons learned. Really pleased to see Tari participating here, and also to hear the way that you are working and also engaging on this. So also to see that we have donors working together. Maria-Agnes and I, we've talked several times that we can use, information across. So this again is like, we just need to be out there together. Also, Henk from IFDC, appreciate, us being in that same room together, although virtual. I mean, it doesn't really matter these days. It's also saving resources, right, to meet virtually. We also need what I often call the data geeks, the IT nerds, and we need to, this is where my colleague Christer always comes in, and we say that we need to talk together, both those who are talking on the soil data per se, but also those who can make it more available through different innovative IT solutions and make it possible to access the data and even help us interpret the data. Such as was said from some of the last speakers, that it's not only dropping the data there. We need to make it also understandable so it can be used. Moving from the systems to the services, really appreciate that. So when it comes to that interdisciplinary work, a big yes, we need to work across. And from what I hear, that is actually, as we're speaking, is a big step of improvement from previous years, that we actually do have more engagement. So it's kind of a big plus in the book for all of us, I believe. More engagement, more sharing of resources. And I think this is where we are kind of repeating ourselves. But from the Norwegian side, this has been our main focus in our support to Soil Hive, is the principles of open and interoperable data that can be shared within and across systems. We are also supporting AudaNepad in efforts of following up and implementation at national and regional levels after the Africa Fertilizer and Soil Health Summit, which now I'm pleased to hear that the Kampala Declaration is a continuation of. So that we can see that this is actually also something that's moving on. So I'm pleased that AudaNepad was invited, and sad to hear that Manyewu had so much to do during the CADUP meetings that he's turned out to be ill. But even your data collection on what's going on in different countries, that's also something that is a big concern of AudaNepad, to understand where are we moving on from and how can we continue. So thanks, everyone. I'm going to end it there. And if you have any questions or if you have any information you want to share, please reach out, and I'll be very happy to receive and to share and to continue on that. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Ingvild, for those inspirational closing remarks. And thanks for also acknowledging that we are moving forward in a positive direction, that we are getting better at data sharing and interdisciplinarity. So thank you so much. So with that, I'm just pleased to reflect on all your questions. I think when Hannah writes the news piece, we're going to have to address some of these questions in the chats, because this is great feedback. We had amazing engagement on the Menti, so I really appreciate. And just let's give everyone a round of applause. And we just want to say thank you so much for kickstarting 2025, talking about soil health, collaboration, and really broadening the scope of how we think about soil.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Asante
everybody.
sana.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Asante sana, kwaheri.
Thank you. Bye bye.